Hello everyone, my name is Tabish Majru and in this video I am with the second chapter of M. Lakshmikanth, that is Making of the Indian Constitution. So Constituent Assembly was a body responsible for drafting the Indian Constitution, and in 1934 the idea of the Constituent Assembly for India was put forward for the first time by M.N. Roy, and in 1935 Indian National Congress also demanded for the Constituent Assembly, and in 1938 Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru on behalf of Indian National Congress demanded a Constituent Assembly which should be based on the adult franchise, means that the member of the Constituent Assembly should be elected by voting. And in 1940, with the August offer, the British accepted that there should be a Constituent Assembly, and in 1942 Sir Stafford Cripps, a member of the cabinet, came to India with a draft which proposed an independent constitution should be adapted after the Second World War. And on 9 December 1946, first meeting of the Constituent Assembly took place, and Dr. Rajendra Prasad was the elected president of that assembly, and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar led the drafting committee. And now we will study about the features of the Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Assembly was constituted in November 1946 under the scheme formulated by the Cabinet Mission Plan, and the strength of the Constituent Assembly was to be 389, out of which 296 seats were allocated to the British India and 93 were allocated to the princely states. If we talk about the British India, out of 296 seats, 292 seats were allocated to 11 governors provinces and 4 were allocated to each chief commissioners provinces. And in the Constituent Assembly, there was a fair representation of all religions and community, and 1 seat was allocated for 1 million population. And if we talk about the community-wise distribution in British India, seats were divided among Muslims, Sikhs, generals, and the members were elected with the help of PRSTV method. It was an indirect election through the provincial legislative assemblies, and the full form of PRSTV is proportional representation by single transferable vote. Yeah, so now we will study the princely states representation. 93 seats were reserved for the princely states, and members were nominated by the ruler of that particular princely state. And mostly the princely state did not participated in the initial phase of the Constituent Assembly, but later on they joined. And the nature of the assembly was that it was partially elected and partially it was nominated, like the princely states were nominated and the people were, and rest of the people were elected with the help of PRSTV method. It was an indirect election which was not based on the adult franchise. Even though Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru demanded for an election on the basis of adult franchise, it was not accepted. And after the election, Indian National Congress won 208 seats, Muslim Leagues won 73 seats, and other and independent parties won 15 seats. And there was no representation of princely states in the initial phase of the Constituent Assembly. And though not directly elected, all majority communities like Hindu, Muslim, Sikhs, Parsis, STs, SCs, women, all sectors were included. And the top leaders were Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, etc. There was a very important personality who was not the member of the Constituent Assembly. If you know the answer, comment it down. And now we will study the working of the Constituent Assembly. The very first meeting of the Constituent Assembly took place on 9th of December 1946. Only 211 members participated in that meeting because Muslim League were demanding for Pakistan, so they boycotted it. And Dr. Sachchidananda Sinha was selected as the first temporary president because as per a French practice, the oldest member was elected as a temporary president, and after that the president election can be conducted. And Dr. Rajendra Prasad was the elected president, and H.C. Mukherjee and V.T. Krishnamachari was the elected vice president of the country. And on 13th of December 1946, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru moved the objective resolution to set the ideological and philosophical foundation of the constitution. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar described objective resolution as the soul of the Indian constitution. And now we will discuss the key features of the objective resolution. It stated that India should be independent, sovereign and republic. And it's also stated that the British India and princely state shall be a union of all. It provided autonomous unit with residuary power unless assigned to the union, and it also stated that the sovereignty of the country should be derived from the people. That is why in the preamble it is written that we the people of the country India. And it should guarantee justice, equality and liberty. the constitution should safeguard the minority, tribal and backward classes, and it should also maintain the integrity of the country. And it also stated that India should contribute to the world peace and global welfare. So on 22nd of January 1947, the objective resolution was adopted and it became the guiding principle for drafting the constitution. And a modified version of the objective resolution is now known as the preamble of the Indian Constitution. There were few changes in the Constituent Assembly after the Indian Independence Act 1947. When During the initial phase, the princely states stayed away, and later on they joined the Constituent Assembly. On 20th of April 1947, six princely states joined the assembly, and after the Mountbatten Plan on 3rd of June 1947, most of the princely states joined, and Muslim League also joined, who will also most of the members of Muslim League will also withdraw their seats from the Constituent Assembly. And the Constituent Assembly is now sovereign to form any constitution they want, and they can also repeal and change British law which were applicable to India at that time. So at that time, the Constituent Assembly used to perform two functions. One is for the constitution making, and the another one was for law making, like a parliament. So at that time, the Constituent Assembly used to function as the India's first parliament until 26th of November 1949. And when the Constituent Assembly used to meet for the purpose of constitution, then it used to be headed by Dr. Rajendra Prasad. And when the Constituent Assembly used to meet as a parliament, then it used to be headed by G.V. Mavlankar. There were few changes, like few members from the Muslim League withdrew from the Constituent Assembly, so the total strength was reduced to 299 from 389, and for British provinces it was reduced to 229, which used to be 296, and for princely state it was reduced to 70 from 93. There were few other important functions which the Constituent Assembly performed. They rectified India's membership in Commonwealth on May 1949, and they adopted the national flag on 22nd of July 1947, and on 24th of January 1950 they adopted the national anthem and national song, and they elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad as India's first president on 24th of January 1950. If we talk about the timeline and session, total 11 sessions were there. It took 2 years, 11 months, 18 days for the making of the constitution, and they debated for 114 days, and they studied 60 plus constitutions, and it costed 64 lakh for making the constitution, and final session and transitions. So on 24 January 1950 the final session took place, and from 26 January 1950 assembly became provisional parliament and continued until first general election took place in 1951 and 1952. Now the drafting committee. So the drafting committee was set up on 29th of August 1947, and the purpose was to prepare the draft of the Indian Constitution. It is considered as one of the most important committee which were full of lawyers, because they are the one who are going to write the constitution. And there were total 7 members. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was the chairman, and N. Gopalaswamy Iyer was also a member. Aladi Krishnaswamy Iyer, Dr. K. A. Munshi was also a member. Syed Muhammad Sadullah was a member of the drafting committee, and K. Madhav Rao was also a member, who was replaced by B. L. Mittal because of his health, and T. T. Krishnamachari was replaced by D. P. Khaitan because he passed away in 1948. Now the work done by the committee. So the drafting committee considered recommendations from the different committees, and prepared the first draft in February 1948, and 8 months were given to the public, normal people, to provide suggestions, and the second draft was prepared in October 1948, which incorporated the feedbacks and criticisms. And if we talk about the key dates and reading, on 4th of November 1948 Dr. B.R. Ambedkar introduced the draft constitution for the first reading, and from 4th of November to 9th of November 1948 general discussion took place in the Constituent Assembly, and from 15th of November 1948 to 17th of October 1949 the clause by clause second reading took place in the Constituent Assembly. There were 7,653 amendments proposed, out of which 2,473 were discussed, and on 14th of November 1949 the third reading began, and lastly on 26th of November 1949 the constitution was adopted. Out of 299 members, only 284 members were present and signed the constitution. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar moved the motion for adoption, And if you talk about the date in preamble, it is 26th of November 1949, and it is written that the people, we the people of India, gave ourselves the constitution on 26th of November 1949. But I want to ask you a question: why we celebrate Republic Day on 26th of January, not on 26th of November? There is a reason why Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru proposed that we should celebrate the Republic Day on 26th of January, not on 26th of November. If you know the reason, comment it down. If you talk about the structure of the original Constitution of 1949, it used to contain the preamble, 395 articles, 8 schedules, and the preamble was enacted after the rest of the Constitution. And if you talk about Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, he was a law minister at that time, and is also known as the father of the Indian Constitution, modern Manu, chief architect of the Constitution, known for his logical, persuasive speeches in the assembly. And this is the preamble of our India, that we the people of India have solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure all its citizens justice, social, economy and political, liberty of thoughts, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status, of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution. If we talk about the enforcement of the Constitution, came into force in two phases. The first phase was on 26th of November 1949, when partially the Constitution was enforced. Only a few articles like Article 5 to 9 for citizenship, Article 60, 324 and so on were enforced. And in the second phase on 26th of January 1950, major part of the Constitution was enforced. And 26th January was chosen to honor Poon Swaraj. That is why we celebrate the Republic Day on 26th of January. And if you talk about the repeal of old laws, so with the Constitution, Indian Independence Act of 1947 and Government of India Act 1935 were repealed. Only the Privy Council Abolition Act 1949 was still in force. On 8th of July 1946, the Indian National Congress formed an expert committee to prepare the work of the Constituent Assembly. And it consists of few members like the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was the chairman, M. Asif Ali, K. M. Munshi, N. Gopalaswamy Iyer, K. T. Shah, D. R. Gadil, Humayun Kabir, K. Santhanam. So later the Krishna Kriplani was also opted as a member, and the expert committee was to prepare the work of the Constituent Assembly. If we talk about the symbols, the elephant symbol was adopted as a symbol of the Constituent Assembly. Sir B.N. Rao was the constitutional advisor of the Assembly. H.V.R. Iyengar was the secretary of the Constituent Assembly. S.N. Mukherjee was the chief draftman of the Constituent Assembly. And Prem Bihari Narayan Rayzada was a calligrapher of the original handwritten English version of the Indian Constitution. And original manuscript was decorated by the artist from Shanti Niketan. Devbhar Ram Manohar Sinha especially decorated the preamble, and Vasant Krishna Vaidya was a calligrapher of Hindi version, which was designed by Nand Lal Bose. Now we will talk about the Hindi text of the Constitution. 58th Constitutional Amendment Act 1987 inserted Article 394A, which authorized Hindi translation, means the President shall publish a Hindi translation of the Constitution, translation of all amendments with modification for clarity, terminology and style. It also provided equal authority. Hindi translation will have same legal meaning as English, and it also provided a legal status, like the Hindi version shall be authoritative and official. So this was the second chapter making of the Constitution, and thank you for watching the video. Please like, share and subscribe the video. Till then, keep learning, keep growing. We will soon meet with the third chapter, Silent Features of the Indian Constitution, in the next video. Have a great day.